So the Lilith discourse has found its way to my FYP again recently.
Shalom, everybody. Um, Also, hi, Better Dari. Y'all go watch the Better Dari's video on this amazing things. I wasn't gonna do this, but the video that I wanted to do got already talked about better by people better than me. Um, Shout out to Angela's Symposium. We were on the same brain cell for a minute. We're going to talk about it again. I'm not going to talk about Lilith, though. Not as much. We're going to talk about the Mesopotamia part. Because, Mesopotamia man here. Mr. Mesopotamia. So, the Mesopotamian origins of Lilith are non-existent. It's not a thing. Here's where the conflation comes in. You have Lilith. You have the Lillitu. Kind of in the middle there, you have Lamashtu, but we'll get to that. So the idea that is generally put forward is that Lilith and Lillitu have a shared thing here because of how Lilith is depicted as opposed to them, which, again, as I've discussed in my other Lilith video, is taking the 10th century version of Lilith and applying it all the way back to 6,000. What, Olivia? Hi! Yes, girly. I'm sure they can hear the meows. Yes, girly. But the other thing is that, well, they share the same etymological root, so there must be some shared, historiographically speaking, I butchered that word, they must have a shared root, right? Wrong. Because they don't have a shared root. We need to understand how these languages work. The human mouth can only make so many sounds. And so sounds are going to be similar. So we have to look at these sounds in their proper context. We're going to start with the Lillitu. The Lillitu come from the root word lil, or lil, Lillitu. This word essentially means breath, wind, these kind of things. It was wind to denote a type of thing here. That these were spirits within a more airy domain, as opposed to some sort of earthy demon. So, Lil, for Lillitu. Now, Lilith does have Lil in it, but the root of Lilith is not the Akkadian root. The root for Lilith comes from Lilliot, which does not mean wind or have any similarities. Lilliot comes to have a root that means night. So specifically, Lilith comes from a root that is night. Lillitu comes from a root that means wind. So, they do not share an etymological root. They don't share a conceptual root, as what we see of the Lillitu bears similarity to what Lilith becomes in the 10th century CE, but we're looking at the 3000s to 2000s BCE when it comes to the Lillitu. Now, Samuel Noah Kramer does throw a little wrinkle in this idea, or in this whole discussion. And it's brought up sometimes, but people don't bring up the whole context here. Samuel Noah Kramer, near the end of his career in this stuff, did posit a theory about Lilith and the Lilliot. Or Lilith and the Lillitu. Now, importantly, this was at a time where Samuel Noah Kramer was coming up with all sorts of wacky ideas as age started to play its hand, and are widely disregarded ideas with no evidence to point to them. But Samuel Noah Kramer hypothesized, looking at the story of Gilgamesh and the Hulupu tree, that the Kiskiskililana may have had something to do with Lilith. Now, we know now that, and that's a crazy word to have to say because it is Sumerian. It's talking about the logographs in it. So, Kiskiskililana. We now know that that story is referring to separately a snake and a young maiden. This young maiden may or may not have been associated with Inanna. This is where we get the idea that Lilith was associated with Inanna, because Lilith is a Kiskili. But we know that's not true. It's also not even what Kramer said. Kramer posited that the Kiskili-Inanna is a proto-archetype to the archetype that would become Lilith. So there's like 4 degrees of separation, even in the claim that Kramer made. A claim that to this day is still unsubstantiated. Lilith does not appear in this stuff. She does not appear in the Babylonian demon list. She does not appear mentioned in the Maklu. We do not see her in the Zishuru list. We do not see her in the Belith Siri. We don't see her whatsoever within Mesopotamia. What we do see, and that further makes this tricky, is that there was a period of time in which the Jewish people were exiled in Babylon. And during the Babylonian exile is when they began to write and scribe their stuff. So, in early mentions, in earlier texts such as the Song of the Sages, the term Lilith does come up, and the idea of the Lilith. And I say the Lilith because it was a class of demon, both male and female spirits that fell under the umbrella of Lilith. Going further, after the Achaemenids, Xerxes, Darius, Cyrus, all of them took over, Mesopotamia had fallen, Babylon is no more, the Neo-Babylonians are gone too, we do start to see incantation bowls that appear in that general area. And these are incantation bowls that were used by the Jewish people and have Lilith in the center with the concentric ring of formulaic inscriptions with that bind and constrain Lilith from an area. And these technically do show up in the geographic location that would be considered Mesopotamia, literally Mesopotamia, the land between 2 rivers. But we do not see it in the culture of the Mesopotamian people. We do not see it in the culture of the Sumerians, or the Akkadians, or the Babylonians. So while it is in a geographical location, this is a geographical location hundreds of years after a culture is gone from that. Anyways, hi Dari, loved your video. Y'all go watch that one again. I gotta get some food in my stomach and play with this cat. So you all have a wonderful day. Shamu.